For 3 months, I've been living on the edge of my seat. I, 26M, have been in an on-again, off-again relationship with my now ex-girlfriend, 25F, for the past 4 years, but we have never ceased seeing one another in person. Despite this, the personal connection is more essential to me than the legal title relationship in this case. In a good location, living together and getting things done, we were in a good place. The pandemic was challenging, and I ended up spending a lot of time indoors, which she understood. So she would frequently stop at the grocery store on her way home from work and other errands to stock up on supplies. The decision was made to put her on antidepressants in February after she had been seeing a therapist for a few months. After only a few months of living together, I began to observe some odd behavior on his part. She appeared to be a lot more energetic and willing to attempt new and exciting things than she had been previously. At first, I didn't give it much thought because she had a lot of power. On one of the days in April, she informed me that she would be going on a date. Asked why she was calling it a date, she said that it was simply an opportunity to do something pleasurable outside with someone she cared about. That seemed strange, and I gradually realized that something wasn't quite right. We sat down to talk, and she expressed a desire to do more fun things with me, or at the very least spend more time with me, than she had previously expressed. After I agreed, my boyfriend and I established a cozy arrangement and spent the evening talking and snuggling, watching a movie, and just enjoying ourselves. She said she would see him the next day, and that she would see him again the following day. When she asked me if I trusted her, I informed her that I did not want her to have any personal physical contact with him. But I wasn't going to stand in the way of her having a good time and meeting new people. She agreed, and that night, we made a pinky promise to each other. The following day, she went to see him. As of dinner time, I hadn't heard back from her, so I contacted her to check if she was planning on coming home for dinner. There was no response to my question. I took a deep breath and continued. It had only been a few hours. It was becoming late, and she hadn't answered to any of my text messages yet. When I inquired as to whether one of our friends could contact her, she eventually responded. I was causing her considerable stress and worry. She needed to rest, and she intended to spend the night in the hotel room where she was staying. I reminded her of the terms of our contract. "Did I make any promises to you?" she inquired. I was outraged at the time. I was taken advantage of. She had me restricted from the house for the night. It took her till 1 p.m. the following day to send me a text. She stated that she intended to be completely honest with me. He and she were in a relationship at the time. She made it clear that she didn't want any discussions over it when she got back home from school. She maintained that she had no regrets about what she had done. I was taken aback. The house was deafeningly quiet. When she arrived home at 10 p.m., she walked inside the room. I was hoping for a positive outcome to take place, but I had no idea what was going to happen after that point. She stepped into the room and burst into tears. But it wasn't because she was contrite or regretted what she had done. He didn't accept her. In fact, he turned her down. It turns out that the guy hadn't really moved on from his ex. According to her, my messages made her feel uncomfortable, and she ended up having a panic attack that night. I'm sure he took advantage of the situation. I was completely at a loss for what to do. My thoughts were utterly absent from my consciousness. Over the course of our 4 years together, she just demolished every ounce of our trust. And in doing so, she crushed her own heart, and I'm sure she was hoping I'd feel sorry for her when I didn't. I was enraged on the inside, as you might imagine, but I couldn't help but feel terrible for her. She was behaving in a hasty and careless manner. The fact that I was expected to console her made me laugh, and after a period of silent and serious reflection, I decided to crawl beside her in bed rather than sleep on the couch. Everyone has the right to a second chance at success. This had never happened before, and I was well aware that she was going through a terrible and complicated period in her life. This woman meant a great deal to me. Her efforts to make amends continued the following day, and she went above and above to fulfill my requests, including baking a lovely cheesecake and engaging in stimulating discussions about many topics. I had thought that we would be able to continue from here and get to know one another better. However, what actually happened was that we gradually drifted apart. It seemed like she was always working, and on weekends, she was either working on her side job or hanging out with her friends. Again, I didn't pay attention to it at first until I started noticing it more and more. She was never at home anymore, and when she did come home, we were almost immediately thrown into a battle. That late at night, I was continually high, and she was constantly on the verge of losing her mind. She eventually admitted to me that she was head over heels in love with 3 different people. She proceeded to tell me odd stories that I couldn't believe. That she was able to connect telepathically with her friends was a surprise. She possessed the ability to detect and sense energy. She was able to connect with her departed grandfather, who was keeping an eye on her, as well as a couple of angels who were watching after her. She claimed to have evidence of these claims and wanted to share it with me on her own initiative. Because her evidence was devoid of substance, and her demonstrations failed to yield the expected consequences, she began criticizing me, and I was simply too pessimistic to see what she was getting at. I wasn't prepared for what was about to happen. She wasn't a traveling circus performer who could put on a performance whenever she felt like it. I tried to reason with her a number of times, but every time I told her that what she said was hurting me or that I was concerned, we just ended up arguing. It was I, not her, who was having difficulties. I grew concerned about her behavior and looked up her antidepressant medication. It has been discovered that it has the potential to increase manic tendencies, which in extreme cases could result in hospitalization and or psychosis. During supper one evening, she dropped a bomb on us. She made use of a dating application. She came upon a couple of gentlemen. She insisted that I leave the house immediately. Alternatively, she could pack her possessions and move into an unknown friend's home the following day until she was able to relocate. I informed her that I wished to remain and speak with someone who was involved in her therapy and medication regimen. To my fortunate surprise, she agreed and stated that if I were to send him a letter, she would personally deliver it to him. In the letter, I expressed my reservations about the situation. The following day, she allegedly packed her belongings and left, with a note addressed to her psychiatrist in her possession. They may have claimed that they did not consider it important at this time in the therapy, and as a result, they did not even bother to read it. Something was seriously wrong, and I was well aware of it. It wasn't her at all. She refused to let me go anywhere until a few weeks later, when a friend called to tell me that my ex had been admitted to the hospital for an uncontrollable psychotic episode. My expectation was that she would seek consolation from me, as I knew she was afraid, but she appeared to have found a new boyfriend instead. She made it obvious that she didn't want me involved in anything because I was stalking and defaming her at the time. When it came down to it, I was trying to contact a few of her closest friends, as well as her father, to voice my concerns. We've arrived at this point 3 months later. As a result of her liberation, she has entered into a devoted relationship with this man. She continues to feel that I am obsessed with her and following her because I'm making such an effort to communicate with her. But the grief hasn't gone away, even though I've been doing my own thing and trying to get back on track. She has no recollection of what transpired that day, only the negative aspects. With the help of a stranger from a dating app, her reconstruction has been completed without my presence. I'm feeling completely useless. I hope I could have been there to support her. To think that this is what she genuinely wants is beyond me. I'd like to track her down and tell her what transpired between us. However, this simply serves to increase her mistrust in me. Our faith, on the other hand, is entirely shattered at its very core. I'd only have faith in her to rebuild it if she is motivated to do so. Even then, my confidence in her is tenuous. I'm not sure what's going to happen after that. I'm driven to extend forgiveness to her. She doesn't actually care about me anymore, and she'd be fine if I didn't get in touch with her for the rest of my life. Possibly, if she remembers what happened, she will change her mind, if such a thing is even conceivable. Alternatively, she may have already given it a home and moved on. She was dealing with a lot at the time. I'm concerned that we'll drift even further apart. I don't want her to have a negative impression of me that she will carry with her for the rest of her life. She appeared to resemble her previous self more and more as the days went on. She, on the other hand, isn't very interested in me. She also has a new boyfriend, which is exciting. Yes, I understand that this is more of a health concern, but a lot of this is the result of adultery.